In this video, I'm going to show you how to integrate AidaForm with Google Analytics using Google Tag Manager. So first off, what is AidaForm? It's a similar tool to TypeForm, which is a form builder. It does a little bit less than TypeForm, and it does a couple other things that TypeForm doesn't do. And I think it's definitely worth a look for the price point. It's just it's a no-brainer in my opinion. Right now they're offering 50% off plans. It's like $95 for the year. Typeform, I think you pay like $70 for the month. So definitely worth the look right there. So let me show you what I was trying to do. So let me flip over to my form. So what I'm trying to do, so one thing that AidaForm doesn't have is a native integration into Google Analytics. Kind of sucks, but they do have at least an option to configure Google Tag Manager to send form events to your Google Analytics account. Essentially what I wanted to do was send kind of two different events. So I wanted to get a sense of when people completed the form, right? So form submissions, number one. And then secondly, if people did not submit their form, I wanted to see where they would fall off. So if they interacted with like the name, the email, and then like fell off at the phone number. Like I wanted to see the steps and also send those as events in my Google Analytics account. So I'll walk you through pretty quickly how I did it, and then if you have any questions, just shoot them down in the comments, and I'll do my best to get to them. So first thing you want to do is create a form. I created this simple GTM test. Then go to Setup. Go to third-party integrations, and then here you're going to put in your GTM ID. So this is your container ID. Go to your Tag Manager account, and you can find it there. So that's step number one. Then after that, you have to do some configuration in Google Tag Manager, and this is where it gets a little hairy, but hopefully this video helps you get through those obstacles. So let's have a look at my notes. So first we want to do create two triggers, and these triggers are essentially signaling the actions taken on your form, and then sending that information to Google Tag Manager. So the first two things we need to do is create these custom events, one for input and then one for submit. So let me jump over to Google Tag Manager and then have a look at my triggers. And here you can see I created both triggers. All right, so the event name has to be input because that's what it's called. So it has to be, it's case sensitive, so make sure it's spelled as is. And then we're going to refer to this trigger in a tag, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But first, set that up, and then do the same for this particular custom event. So this is going to be submit. All right, so we knock that out. So the next thing up is we want to have a look at, we want to create a variable. So Google Tag Manager calls this a user-defined variable, and this is to capture the name of each question in our form. So first thing we want to do, so I'm gonna refresh this, and then we're gonna have a look at a real example here. Okay, so here we can see the preview, right? And if I go to data layer, and then let me just put my name. So since I'm interacting with this form and we've created that custom event trigger, we need to access this particular key value pair. So the intent here is to collect each step the user is taking on the form, right? So every time they interact with this particular question, we want to shoot that over to Google Analytics. When they move on to the next one, for instance, we want to send that information to Google Analytics. And then that way we could kind of create like a funnel report to see, okay, you know, the form's way too long, let's shorten it up, where people kind of fall off in this question, whatever. So in order to access this, we need to create a data layer variable with this targeting the target variable. So hopefully that's not too confusing. So anyway, so let's hop back over to Google Tag Manager, and then from here we'll go to variables, and then we'll create a user-defined variable, which I've already created here. So let's jump in there. And of course, this is case sensitive, right? So make sure it's like this. And then we're gonna refer to this variable in our tag, right? So we haven't done that yet. So that's the last step. So now we need to create two tags, one for the interaction, to track the interaction. So that's, you know, like the filling out of the email, the name, that kind of stuff, and then shoot that over to Google Analytics. And then the second one, the second tag that we want to create is on form submission. So let's hop back over and then have a look at those tags. Okay, so form interaction. The track type needs to be event. And here, these are static names that I'm putting, right? So I always want to refer to this category as form, the action as the interaction, and then here is where I want to pass the step of each point in the form, right? So here's where you'll essentially pull the variable that we created. So this is the data layer variable target, right? And then we're going to use that as that dynamic field to populate the label. So I'll show you what it looks like in the actual Google Analytics report. And then we want to pass over the Google Analytics tracking ID. So I've created a video on how to install Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics. It's super quick overview on how to do it. So you can have a look at one of those videos, or the video. It's only one. And so you'll pass that over, and then for the trigger, you want this tag to trigger on that input interaction, right? So make sure you select that. So you'll just click on this, right? Let's just kind of start from scratch. Click on here, and then select that input. So let me hop back over to the tags. So the next tag you're going to create is that form submission. And this one is going to have essentially the same track type event. You pretty much have flexibility to call this whatever you want. I want to see it in my report as a form submission action, and then I'm just labeling it as my questionnaire. And then you're passing over the your Google Analytics ID again, and it's triggering on submit this time. Okay, so it's all set up, right? You set up your triggers, you set up your variable, your data layer variable, you created your two tags, right? So the next thing you want to do is you want to do, let me leave preview mode here. We want to do the preview mode to just make sure everything is connected properly. So yeah, so hit up the preview up here, and then go to your form, which let me close this out. Yeah, here's my form. And down below, we're gonna see kind of like this debugger. And what we want to see is based off of the interaction, pass some of these, or have a look at like the inputs as events to make sure that they're actually getting passed over here, and also on submit, on the form submit. So let's type that in. So here you can see that trigger that just populated, right? And yeah, just put, yeah, never low. That's nice. And then email, I'll just put test. So you can see that input event, and then we're going to submit this. But before I submit it, let's have a look at the analytics. So you can see that those two events have come through. So it's, let me see if I can drill down in here. Great, so you can see the label name, that's the name of the first question, what's your name, and then your email. Let me go back to the form, what's your name, email, right? So that's working. And then on submit, we can see that submit trigger just fired. And then if we go back to Google Analytics, it'll populate here in a second. Clear these. Okay, so here it is. It just came in, and it's called form is a category, event action is a submission, and then questionnaire is the label that I named it. So so there you have it. Really quick walkthrough on how to connect AidaForm with Google Tag Manager and then pass these events over to your Google Analytics account to kind of see, all right, number one, are people completing the form? And then number two, if they don't complete the form, where are they dropping off? If you have any questions, throw them down in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them.